So the delay of the Nintendo Switch 2 is wreaking havoc on Nintendo's financials. We can actually see an article from Ben Zinga, and it reveals some very startling information. There was some rumbling going on previously that Nintendo was beginning to have some serious shakeups at Nintendo of America. It seems like those things were actually true. We know that a lot of downsizing has been happening in the gaming industry. Thousands of people have been laid off from their jobs at various gaming companies. Sony recently just cut like 900 people. I don't know if it was just at like just one studio. It's massive. Microsoft has been laying off. Every game company has been laying off. It's just unbelievable. Well, check this out. Gaming industry layoffs. Nintendo confirms testing department cuts. Testing. So, and Nintendo usually doesn't confirm anything, but in this case, they have chosen to confirm that they are laying people off. They call it testing department cuts. Wow. Either you're laying people off or you're not. They are laying people off. So, Nintendo of America is undergoing significant changes in testing department amidst in its testing department amidst a reports a reported slowdown in game development and the apparent delay of the Switch 2. According to a report by Kotaku, can't stand Kotaku, Nintendo has confirmed a restructuring of its internal testing involving the termination of some contractor assignments and the creation of a new full-time employee positions. Nintendo ADR stated for all assignments that are ending, the contractors agencies with Nintendo of America support will offer severance packages and provide assistance during their transition. So they wouldn't be offering severance packages if these people were not an integral part of Nintendo's business and they were operating in the capacity of employees. What they're really attempting to do here is get rid of a large part of their staff and replace them with a handful of people, almost like a skeleton crew, to do the jobs that many people were doing before. So this is absolutely frightening. For those contractor associates who will be leaving us, we are tremendously grateful for the important contributions they've made to our business, and we extend our heartfelt thanks for their hard work and service to Nintendo, the Japanese company added. Now let's continue. Contractors suggest that Nintendo is experiencing a lull in its testing department due to the absence of major first party game releases on the horizon and a lack of hands on testing for the upcoming Switch successor, initially rumored for a late 2024 release. So basically, they have a department at Nintendo that handles testing for games, products, and all these other things. And clearly, Nintendo is not putting out products right now. They're not dropping a lot of games. The games that are actually coming out, a lot of them are just straight up remakes. And so Nintendo has completely shifted their gears and priority and their focus to next generation. There are some people who are saying that, Nintendo should drop, what do you call that? Metroid Prime 3 on the no, no, Metroid Prime 4 on a Nintendo Switch, and they're even suggesting that it may be a cross generation game. I'm beginning to wonder that if Metroid Prime 4 will even be on the Nintendo Switch. It sounds crazy for me to say that, but I don't necessarily think it's entirely crazy. While Metroid Prime is not necessarily known to sell anywhere near as many games as the as other series. Metroid Prime 4 is a game that people have been looking for, and I'm suspicious that Nintendo may have designed it differently. What do I mean by that? Well, in previous generations, when Nintendo did, created Metroid Prime, it was basically from start to finish. So you would start the game, you'd play through some of it, and you'd play through it, and then the game would end. And maybe you could go back and unlock some bonus things and pick up, grab gear that you missed in other places. But it was basically it wasn't like The Legend of Zelda, where Breath of the Wild, where you just play that game forever. I never beat Breath of the Wild. I've put in over 100 hours. I put in hundreds of hours, I think, into Breath of the Wild. I've put in more hours into that game than maybe any other game since Final Fantasy VII back in the 90s. Like, that's how many hours I put into Breath of the Wild. And I didn't beat I've never beat Breath of the Wild. One of the reasons why I never beat Breath of the Wild is just because I enjoyed Breath of the Wild so much. The game was not about saving the princess. It was about enjoying yourself, exploring the world, crafting, building. It was just absolutely phenomenal. I loved it. I loved the experience so much. So for me, it's like, it was that was it. And I'm wondering if they've been able to figure out something similar with Metroid, where it's a game where you pick it up, but you don't necessarily ever have to complete the game. Like, sure, you can go and beat the final bad guy, who's always that dinosaur looking dude, pterodactyl looking dude, but it doesn't necessarily, but it doesn't mean like now you even have to do that. Like, you can go right there and fight him at the very beginning, but it doesn't, it doesn't necessarily mean that. So I'm wondering if they're going to make it kind of more like an open world type of game. Not maybe not exactly open world, like, but if you look at, like, for example, Mario Odyssey, how they designed that game, where they had multiple different worlds, our lands in the game where you can go and play, and even our Mario Galaxy, you can just play that game forever. I'm wondering if that's the kind of structure they're going for. And it makes me wonder if this is a game that could even run on the Nintendo Switch. Like, it could be a very bad idea releasing Metroid Prime 4 on the Nintendo Switch, unless it's like a multi-platform game where you can upgrade, like, if you buy a Switch 2, you can upgrade, for free, or just play the game on. I don't know. I think it might be a terrible idea, because this sounds like a game that could be run on Unreal Engine. Could be running on Unreal Engine. Was it 5 at this point? I think we might be on Unreal Engine 5 now, but it's going to be phenomenal, I think. And if you look at the power of the Nintendo Switch to run a game like this, that's probably going to be so graphics intensive. I don't know. I don't know. And Nintendo are wizards. They are 100% wizards, but this really, really concerns me, because either they're holding the game back, or there's also the possibility the game is not even done yet. Do I think the game is canceled? No. They rebooted it. They started over from the beginning. There's a possibility, y'all, that there's a possibility that the Nintendo Switch 2 can come out and Metroid Prime 4 is not even a launch title. It could come out later this year. It could come out. It could be the win. It could be like the game, like the final hurrah for the Nintendo Switch, and it comes out in the fall. That could be it. Or it could be a multi-platform. It could be a multi-platform game where it's available for the Switch and the Switch 2, and they could hold it back until the release of the Switch 2, which is something that it sounds like Nintendo would probably do, because it's such a large release, and it would be a system seller, just like how Breath of the Wild was a system seller. But there's also another and it could also just be a game that's released only on the Switch 2. But there's another possibility. It may not come out this year. It may not even come out early next year. This game may still be a ways away. How far away? It could be a year or two away if it ever comes out, but it could be a year or two away. It may actually not be done yet. For example, there could have been a point where they were developing the game and they realized like we want to do more. We want to make this game better. We've been working on this game for years, and technologically speaking, this hardware is holding us back. And developers could say to Nintendo, "Listen, Nintendo, it's taking us a long time to develop this game, and we get it. You want to ship it on the Switch, but this isn't going to run on the Switch. If you want us to make this run on the Switch, we're going to have to cut this out. We're going to have to cut this out. We're going to have to scale this back. It's going to look ugly. This is like, it's going to look like just nasty. Are you really sure that's what you want to put out there into the world?" And this is supposed to be a game that looks next generation, but Metroid Prime remaster was actually kind of a remake. For the textures, everything, the models, they were all redone essentially, to my understanding. Like they redid practically everything in that game. They kept the same format of the game and structure, but they redid the graphics, and it was like rebuilt from the ground up. And when you consider those factors, then you have to think about it. Like the game looked phenomenal, but that's kind of like the best the Switch could do. Like that's like the best the Switch could do. I don't see them releasing a game that's going to blow away Metroid Prime Remastered. I think Remastered was an amazing title. I think that they were kind of forced to release it the way that they did, but because they had been sitting on it for so long. I'm surprised that they did not make Metroid Prime Remastered. I'm surprised they didn't release it in the fall for like $70, 69.99 or 60 bucks, because it would have 100% sold for 60 bucks, or maybe even 70 bucks, because it was such a good remaster. And it was just such a great game. It got like a 10 out of 10, and Nintendo basically chose like not to focus on that. But yeah, this is pretty crazy. This is pretty crazy, and it shows that there are some seriously hard times going on in the there's some seriously hard times going on for Nintendo right now in the gaming industry. Things are not good. It's definitely the delay of the Switch 2 is definitely affecting their financials, and it's going to be an issue. Do I think Nintendo is going to sell a lot of Switches this year? I think it's going to drop. They might surprise us because like Japan is still selling quite a lot. They're still selling a lot of Switches in Japan. There's like they were still selling like 3DSs forever. But at this point, everyone and their mother that wants a Switch has a Switch. And while there's a lot of people who may upgrade to the Switch OLED, and that's something serious, beyond that, I don't know. Most people know that a Switch 2 is likely on the horizon. I mean, it's kind of evident because we're not getting any new games. We're getting almost like zero new games at this point, like Princess Peaches, you know, or whatever the hell, whatever they called it, like that game where she's like the new game that just came out where she's like, doing stage plays and dress up. That that it was a cool game, but that's like something you would have seen on like the 3DS, and I think they sold it for like 60 bucks. Like, are they out of their damn minds? And then they have like Luigi's Mansion 2 coming out remastered on the this summer, and they're like presenting it like one of the big games of the year. Luigi's Mansion 2. The game came out like almost 10 years ago, or like a long time ago on the 3DS, and they're going to be selling it for 60 bucks. That game was like 40 bucks when it came out, and they're selling it for like 60 bucks. Like, holy cow. Is there supposed to be like additional content, a lot of additional content, or what? Like, what the hell are you doing other than giving it a facelift? And like there you have it. Because the value that we got with Metroid Prime Remastered was literally up there. And while I love playing Luigi's Mansion, it's one of my favorite games. For me, there were aspects of Luigi's Mansion 3 that were just a bit too hard. Although I feel like I plan to still go back to it and enjoy it a bit. But I don't know. I don't know. It's clear that Nintendo is done with the Switch right now in terms of like they may like some companies will still drop some games, and there'll be some like party games and stuff, and because it's a large install base, but Nintendo is done with. You can see that Nintendo is done, and it's kind of frightening because they have an install base of like over 130 million at this point. I think will the Nintendo Switch become the best selling console of all time? I don't know. The PlayStation 4 is the best-selling PlayStation 4. Yeah, right. PlayStation 2 is the best-selling console of all time, which is insane because just considering that it came out in like 2000 or 2001, and it went on to sell like 154 million consoles. That should say a lot. Although I mean, as I think about it now, there are some things that did help to move the PlayStation 2. One of those was the technology. The PlayStation 2 had a DVD player, and one of the cheapest ways to get access to a DVD player was to have a PlayStation 2. And when they came out with the PlayStation 2 Slim, the PlayStation 2 Slim was an insane piece of hardware. It was like an absolute miracle of technology where you had this tiny device that was like it was almost like an like having a MacBook Air. Like they went from this big chunky device, which was still pretty cool, and it was still much. The original PlayStation was still much smaller than these like modern consoles. It went from this big chunky device to this tiny device that you could hold in your hand. Like literally one hand. It was absolutely insane. Like this thing was like I don't know. This thing was like maybe lighter than a Steam Deck. Definitely like thinner than a Steam Deck, maybe. Definitely thinner than a Steam Deck. It was like tiny. Like you can look at the PlayStation 2 Slims. Like these things were tiny. And Sony achieved that. So a lot of people upgraded, and it was just such a benefit that it's like that it was so small, you could just like grab a PlayStation 2 Slim and toss it in your backpack. Like if you wanted to go traveling and you wanted to go traveling, bring and play your games with you, you can toss your PlayStation 2 Slim in a backpack with you, as long as there's going to be a TV, cables, a couple of games. And if you wanted to, if you wanted to just be slick, you could take the games, put them in like smaller cases, and that was just one way, or put them in, or basically put them in, grab a CD case and then just put them in these little envelopes like how we used to have them, and you can bring your games with you on the go very easily. You didn't have to bring the physical cases; those would take up a lot of space. Just bring a CD case, and they have the little section that you just put your games in them, zip it up, toss it in your bag, have your PlayStation 2 Slim in there with you, and you can travel with it very, very easily. And that's how things were. So I guess it's understandable when you consider how much value you got from the PlayStation 2. The PlayStation 2 was amazing. Some of the best games were on the PlayStation 2. The jump from PlayStation 1 to PlayStation 2 was quite substantial. The jump from PlayStation 2 to PlayStation 3 was substantial, but it was just like night and day. When you looking at PlayStation 2, was like, holy cow. It was the first time that you saw games that were just like high definition. And it was like what they achieved. They had the Emotion Engine. The PlayStation 2 was just so powerful. That was back when Sony was really innovating as a hardware company. Like they were creating insane hardware. They were creating their own chipsets. It was just unbelievable. The cell processor was absolutely phenomenal. It's just that they made a mistake in the way that it worked. And as a result of that, and made it difficult to develop games for. There was a mistake in the design, and unfortunately, they did not catch it. I don't know if they could have they could have fixed it, because based on what I saw, there's something that could have been fixed. It was an absolutely insane design what they created. I'm talking about the processor for the PlayStation 3. But yeah, guys, Switch 2 delays, Switch 2 delays have destroyed Nintendo's financials, and now they're laying off employees as a result of that. What do you guys think about that? I want to hear your thoughts on it, so let's talk about it in the comments. Cheers.